Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. After the mega OpTic vs FaZe series this past weekend, JP Chris has revealed a fair bit as to exactly how the team has been approaching scrims and how that isn't necessarily translating into match play, saying that this slow start they seem to get in many of their CDL matches, certainly against FaZe, does not happen in their practice, but also revealing there's only really two teams that give them good quality practice in scrims, and the New York Subliners are apparently not one of them. Robert and Twitter, your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, a couple of things to say on 6-star here. I don't know if this is actually possible in custom games. I don't think it is, because pretty sure if you go down here you get like an out of bounds warning. But I just wanted to mention this is something that may be possible on some of these maps. Now, I'm not saying a pro is going to do this, and I'm pretty sure in the rule set technically there will be something about abusing glitches and stuff like this to get into positions such as this, because yeah, I don't think we're going to see a pro use this. But you know how it goes. These maps, when they're new, they often have problems. Even to be fair, loads of the old maps have problems. All the wallbang spots, for example, that we saw used by HyDra and the Subliners on maps such as Invasion, that will certainly exist to some degree here on 6-star and these new maps as well. And therefore, you gotta wonder whether there's any kind of broken things that these pros will have a think about to see if they can gain a competitive advantage, because I'm sure the Subliners, and we're going to discuss them in a second, yes, the Ordnance Gloves have been banned, well, G8 by the pros, so they're not going to be allowed to use those anymore. But in terms of wallbang spots, that is still free game. And if there's some sort of plant lineup, I imagine if there's any team that's going to be working on that more than others, it may well be the Subliners. And actually, JP reacts to this very interesting wallbang here on 6-star that was noted, where, well, here we are over towards the aBeZy site, and through these stairs, you can actually just wallbang straight through and get some hit markers. So, yeah, pretty interesting, I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure there's more than just that. So yeah, that spot right there where that like riot shield is, you can wallbang straight through the staircase to that, which probably shouldn't be possible, but you know, this is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, baby. There was also talk on the sub, so the Rival 9, we know that Dashy was going on a bit of a tirade right against the Rival 9, trying to get that barrel nerfed or barrel G8 by the pros, and it seemed like 8 teams were in favor, 4 teams were not, and nothing changed. And honestly, watching the gameplay this past weekends, I don't think there were too many complaints from the AR players in terms of how things were being handled. It still seemed to be 2-2. The MCW is still absolutely viable. Like, there's no way. The Rival is very good, for sure, and maybe is even better on LAN. But the meta isn't broken right now by any means as far as I'm concerned. Now, TJ actually says that he reckons they silent nerfed the bullet velocity on the Rival, which would be a pretty significant nerf. This is also another thing that you'll notice in the water on 6-star when basically most guns, let's say the Rifle, are kind of useless because the bullet velocity and the muzzles that they use, the bullets just get stuck in the water. So the best gun in the water is actually the Renetti, which is pretty ridiculous. But, you know, that is how it works. And as Dashy says, yeah, can't shoot straight with it. I don't know, like, what's going on, Chal? So it seems like the AR's propaganda led by Dashy was pretty successful here. We've got to talk about the OpTic FaZe series because so many storylines on this, certainly in terms of the reaction from the OpTic side to why the series went in the way that it did, and also what that necessarily means for the future. Can he also mention comms as well? I know that Shotzzy addressed this briefly on stream and said that, yeah, it's times their, you know, their small talk isn't the best. So Kenny knows what it takes to have a winning team. He knows what it feels like towards the end of a season to be creating a team that's going to dominate the World Championship as Thieves did back in 2022 on Vanguard. So he knows how important comms are. He obviously teamed with Octane for a long time as well. And it's also very important search and destroy. And this is the thing that Kenny has focused on and will, I'm sure, continue to focus on, is the efficacy of his search and destroy gameplay. He has like a 0.89 this season in search, Kenny, which is honestly kind of what Kenny's search and destroy KD usually is at this point in the season, but historically his teams tend to get very good at search towards the end of the year. That kind of needs to happen around about now if they want to find a way to beat FaZe. Now, sure, are they good at search and destroy? They're very solid at search and destroy. They probably should have closed out that high rise against FaZe, and there's clearly a few things to work on. The other thing I wanted to note as well is that during that Vanguard season, Kenny and Drazah quite, you know, famously really changed roles, right? So at the start of that season, it was Kenny and Octane on the ARs, it was Drazah and Envoy on the SMGs. Then at some point in the season, they decided, you know what's, Kenny, go back to the sub, just like how you used to use the PPSH back in World War II. We're going to put you back on the sub again. Drazah switched to the flex role. Kenny then became the sub with Envoy. And they became incredibly good, and they won back-to-back, including the World Championship at the end of the year, and Kenny was MVP or whatever. So that happens. I don't know if it's going to happen again. Is there an argument to say that Kenny on the sub and Pred on an AR or on a flex role could be something to consider? I don't really think they would do this, but I think that it's something they should have at the very back of their mind as like a possibility, because the team OpTic is never going to make a roster change, at least during this season. That's not going to be happening. And can they beat everyone that isn't FaZe? Probably yes. But as I said yesterday, if you want to win an event, you've probably got to find a way to beat FaZe. And obviously OpTic are capable of beating FaZe, but they haven't done so far this season. And maybe that's something to think about. But again, we see these trends, right, with the OpTic guys that whatever's happening in practice isn't necessarily getting replicated in real games. And FaZe are such a difficult team to beat. I think that's something that you see so often when you watch FaZe play. Even, let's say, grand finals in previous seasons that they've lost. FaZe always make it incredibly difficult for the other team to win. That is just, it's a consistent trend at this point, when if you beat FaZe, or if you try and beat FaZe in the grand finals, it's never going to be a 5-0. Like, it's always going to be like a bare minimum of 5-2, really. But 5-3, 5-4. Like, they're always going to take you the distance. They make the game just really hard on their opponents. And even when OpTic had all the advantages at times in the world here, you know, FaZe still made it difficult. They won the rounds that they probably shouldn't have won, and in the end they of course close out the round 5 in a pretty remarkable fashion. Shotzzy finds himself in a 1 versus 3, can't close it out. There has been a question though, what about the practice that OpTic are having, and how is that translating into their matches? Are these mistakes they're making in matches, or is it the same story in practice as well? Shotzzy gets 1, gets traded out by the second. So wanted to share a couple of clips here from JP Krez on the way their practice has been going. Few very interesting words I've got to say on the Subliners. Well, he doesn't mention Subliners, but it's kind of the omission of New York, which definitely caused a little bit of intrigue, but also discussing their practice, because we know that their hard points, let's say OpTic lately, especially to FaZe, they will consistently get smoked on the breakoffs. Like, FaZe just have their number in the breakoffs, and OpTic will go down 40, 50, 60, 70 points. We saw that a fair bit at the Major. We saw it again in the series they played the other day on the Rio. That was most certainly true as well. And even, to be fair, they started off slow on the 6-star. Basically, every map that OpTic seem to play right now, against FaZe at least, they will start off with a deficit. They'll then bring the game back and nearly win it. But you can't afford to have a deficit. And JB says that similarly doesn't happen in their practice.
Yeah, how's Damon been on the team?
It's fucking, he's the GOAT.
Very much
you love it?
I love it. I'm not gonna, because Damon is just, because he's so like to the point too with our team. Like, he'll be like, you guys are playing like fucking morons today.
That's how he's always been. Like Damon, you remember, like BO4, he just wouldn't say anything until we fucked it up for like 2 weeks, and then he'd blow up.
Crim was every day, but Damon had it once a month, and everybody was quiet. We're like, holy shit, Damon's pissed. He speaks, everyone listens.
Somebody rotate. Look at
this. Tony predicted Rocker. Let's get brain box right now.
It was good. It's a Bobby thing.
No, we play everyone like basically the same amount. Do you feel like you get proper rests if you're not scrimming / playing a top 4 team? Sometimes, honestly, I do feel like that. Like, scrims against top 4 teams, in my opinion, especially like FaZe and Toronto, are like the real reps. The other scrims don't feel as much like proper reps, but it depends on the team, and it depends on, like, I don't know, maybe it depends on the day or something, but obviously you can see the difference. I think anyone would say that. Now that I think about it more, because think about it this way, we're doing the same thing that they did to us in the first set of rotation, or the first set of hard points, you know? So I think it's honestly it's a cycle thing, where it's like you get put in a cycle, and in this game, in a hard point, it sometimes could get like really hard to break out of it. And you see that with them in the second half, but like since that happened to us in the first half, we are clawing back and have to climb back. So the onus is on us to like actually take the lead back, if that makes sense. I don't know. It is weird that it just happens, because it doesn't happen to us in scrims like that. But constantly in these matches, we're going down like almost 100, or if not 100 points, you know? But then we turn it back up, and it's like it fucking flips, and everyone else is like trying to break on us, and we're constantly, you know, winning these hills back to back to back, but it's just it just becomes a little bit too late. You know, a little too late.
So of course it's the classic thing that everyone says. They're like, well, it doesn't happen in scrims, so why is it happening in matches? Translating the matches or translating the scrims into matches and all this. But it's definitely something to be thought about because for whatever reason, OpTic's breakoffs in the games, in the actual CDL match, have not been good enough. And if they were just tied 50-50 with FaZe, they would have won the majority of hardpoints against FaZe this season. Certainly in the major that would have been true. If they weren't going down 50, 40, 60 points, then and they bring it back to within 10 or 20, like that happens every single time. You could almost predict how the game is going to go. And once it gets to 130 here, you know, OpTic are going to be pretty confident they're going to close out this game, which is of course exactly what ends up happening. And we actually saw this yesterday, just looking at the hardpoint numbers. But I thought it was interesting to tally this up, right? Because they have played, I mean, what is this, 11, maybe 12 matches? Yeah, I think that's 11 hardpoint matches this season between the two teams. The totals are 2,634 points to FaZe, 2,532 points to OpTic. So over 11 maps, they're averaging a differential of like 9, which is pretty absurd. Like the average map, if you just tallied all these up, is 250 to FaZe, 241 to OpTic, something like that, over 11 maps. Like that's how competitive it has been. But just get 10 more points at the start of the game. Don't get smoked on the break-off. And they're probably going to be in a better position. The other thing, though, I wanted to discuss was on the Subliners, because these guys are 4th in the standings. They are, you know, I would say still the 4th best team in the league. They came 3rd at the most recent events, but they played OpTic in the losers finals, and they got pretty well handled by Pred and the rest of the guys. Obviously, question on Pred right now is that he seems to play well against everybody that isn't FaZe. We had that conversation yesterday. But New York, they came 3rd at the events, but Toronto weren't as good as they typically were. And the Subliners, they won 3 events last season, with Priestahh, of course, on the roster. Now they have Simp. Yes, has the competition improved? I believe so. But will New York actually win an event this season? The way that things are currently looking, I don't think that they will. I think FaZe will win at least 1 more, possibly 2 more, maybe 3 more. There's only 3 more events, but I think FaZe will win 1 or 2 more. I think Toronto will win probably 1 more, and then I think OpTic will maybe win 1, maybe won't. That would be my predictions right now. I think Subliners can, but I've just not been massively impressed by them, right? Even if you look at their numbers, these were their Stage 2 numbers overall. They fried in Stage 2 by the numbers. But that's the whole thing. We know this is, let's say, Invasion hardpoint against OpTic, when they will get loads of kills. And the same was true when they played the Minnesota Rocket the other day. They barely won that series in the respawns. They did win 250-224, 250-240 or whatever. Like, it was close. But it wasn't, you know, emphatic, right? And top teams would, I think, have handled business better than Subliners did. And that seems to be what JP is saying, that when you play Toronto and FaZe, those are like your real reps. Those are like the real practice that you have to go super hard, and you know that the other team is playing an incredibly good level. Whereas the Subliners, sure, lots of talent, lots of kills, lots of slaying, but I think JP is what maybe he was getting at, is that they don't play in quite the same way. It's not quite as high quality Call of Duty. Sure, they can get a lot of kills, and they can definitely beat you in a fair few maps. Like Subliners online, their record has been very impressive, and they played very well in the major as well. Top 3, of course, in the end, with all the tricks they pulled out up their sleeve. But still, do they play a high quality level of COD? As in, are they efficient with their kills? The data right now does not necessarily indicate that. And to me, that is probably going to hold them back from winning an event this season unless they can turn that around. So interesting storyline to keep your eyes on there. But yeah, what needs to change for the OpTic guys to get over the line against FaZe? I think that they're right that they can beat FaZe. It's not impossible to beat FaZe. FaZe are beatable, and OpTic should be able to do it at some point. But for now, they've yet to get over that threshold. So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.